Welcome to the Canon Cantina, a show where we try to answer the question, who is Luke Skywalker, before the release of Star Wars Episode 9. How you doing, everybody? My name is Mike. I am here on Salt Lake Base on planet Utah, ready to talk about one of the biggest Legends series outside of the Thrawn trilogy. And to help me out with that, I've got my co-host and Star Wars best friend, Jesse. How you doing, Jesse?
I am doing excellent, Mike. I am on the space station Tulsa, planet Oklahoma, and we are talking the Jedi Academy trilogy today. And to say this is pivotal in Legends is an understatement, and to say that this was partially, pivotal in our early on Star Wars fandom is also an understatement, because post-Thrawn and Dark Empire, we went right into this, and this kind of laid the groundwork for everything that was to come in the future of Legends. So this is a pretty big deal, you're right. And it's a trilogy.
The future of Legends. That's a great sentence. So today we are kicking off the Jedi Academy trilogy with Book 1, Jedi Search. It was released in March 1994, written by Kevin J. Anderson, a guy who's written a lot of Star Wars books over the years.
Yeah, he certainly has. And this is probably his most famous work because it's a pivotal trilogy at a pivotal time in the Star Wars Legends series. And I don't know. He obviously got pulled back, Mike, after this in the future, but this was still early on, right?
Didn't he write? No, Michael Stackpole wrote most of the X-Wing stuff. Never mind. I was going to say that X-Wing books might be more popular.
I'm going to look this up right now just to make sure. I know he wrote Darksaber, LOL. But
he wrote Darksaber, I, Jedi, some of the new Jedi Order books. He wrote at least five or six Legends novels.
Stackpole wrote I, Jedi.
Oh, I'm getting both of these guys confused. Okay. This is what happens when you think about books you read 20 years ago.
There you go. So, but yeah, Kevin J. Anderson, he was pretty prominent in the Star Wars Legends timeline, but this was his first work, Mike. So like we said, you guys have been following along at home. I hope this is fun for you guys. You're not only getting a Star Wars story lesson from us every week, but you're also getting a Star Wars history lesson in a way, because we're right now in the infancy of Legends, which was all started with Thrawn and then Dark Empire, and then this Jedi series came immediately after Dark Empire, within the same year, Mike, 1994. And they lost no time. They just kept going and going. And from this point onward, Legends got pretty robust. Some of it really bad, some of it good. And we'll see where that goes. But this was the beginnings.
Yeah, it feels a little weird to call what we're doing lessons, but I guess you're right.
We're giving history lessons from 25 years ago. So if anything, that's something people don't necessarily need to know, but maybe they're, there it is. So
we hope you enjoyed our diversion last week when we had the guys from the War Starts at Midnight podcast on to talk Star Wars.
Yes.
But we are ready to jump back into Legends, and we're going to knock out the Jedi Academy trilogy in 3 consecutive weeks, just like we did the Thrawn trilogy. And this will kind of be our year-end wrap-up and bridge us into 2019.
Yeah, Mike, and I'm really excited to go through this journey because, spoiler alert for you guys coming up, but this series is about Luke's formation of the Jedi Academy. These 3 books are, because we've seen Luke now in Thrawn trilogy and also in Dark Empire. He's learned some new things about the Force, but he hasn't actually done anything yet. He hasn't really trained anyone other than Leia. So this is kind of the beginning of that. And what's interesting about this, Mike, is this being Legends as an old EU content. This was the first iteration of Luke's Jedi Academy, Luke's Jedi Training Center, which is now canonical and The Last Jedi in a different way, but it is canonical. Luke did start a Jedi Academy, right, in The Last Jedi. So now we get to compare, for better, for worse, the positives, negatives, all these things throughout this whole series. And hopefully with Star Wars Episode 9, we will learn more about Luke's canonical Jedi Academy.
You almost lost me in the middle there, but I jumped back on. I bet our listeners did too. Spoiler alert, we're going to start a drinking game for how many times Jesse says spoiler alert each episode.
Whoa.
So we've got 3 questions that we focus our discussion around. Question 1, what state is Luke in as he begins his journey? Second one, how do the events and characters he encounters impact his development as a hero? And then the last one for this legend source, would Luke's experiences in this story make him different than the Luke we meet in The Last Jedi? Jesse, this should be a lot more contained and not turned up to 11 like our Dark Empire 2 episode is. So hopefully we can stay on the rails a little more. You ready?
I am so ready.
All right, let's do it.
Ever since Luke disappeared, people have been looking for him.
I'm Luke Skywalker. I'm here to rescue you.
A lot of rumors, stories.
And I became a legend.
People that knew him best.
Luke. Young Skywalker. Luke.
It's all true.
I am a Jedi. Like my father before me.
All of it.
So we start our story immediately after Dark Empire
That's right.
1. After the events of the World Devastators attacking the planet Calamari, we are forgetting 99% of everything that happened in Dark Empire 2 and Empire's End. That stuff was just a little too crazy. But we are still in the, Legends like timeline or whatever, where Luke had fallen to the dark side.
That's right.
Had met with the resurrected Emperor. Leia had stolen the Emperor's holocron. He'd been trying to take over the body of unborn baby Anakin. A lot of weird, creepy stuff and resurrected emperors. Dark Empire 1, like we said, was fine on its own. And Kevin J. Anderson, to his credit, he did a good job of connecting the more sane pieces of the Dark Empire comic to the novel universe.
That's right. And I got two things to say here, Mike, at the beginning of the story. That, piggybacking on what you just said, he was the first author to actually acknowledge Dark Empire's existence. Like I told you, they tried to get Zahn to incorporate it, tie it to Dark Empire, and Zahn refused, laughed at them. He's like, I've been writing these books for years. I'm not changing now for some silly comic. But Kevin J. Anderson actually did his best to kind of be like, hey, remember where Dark Empire ended? Here's our new story, and Dark Empire did happen, even though he doesn't fully acknowledge the ridiculousness of it. Second thing I had to mention here, which I really enjoy with this book, Mike, is chapters 1, 2, and 3 are very short. And chapters 1, 2, and 3 are Luke, Han, and Leia, all from their perspectives. The book starts off with Han and Chewie being by Kessel in the Kessel run, actually, which is cool because now we have Solo in a canonical sense, the Kessel run, and they're pulled down to Kessel. It's a crisis scenario on the Falcon, and then we immediately go to Luke, and Luke is on his apartment on Coruscant, and once again more backstory on Coruscant pre the prequels, which is speaking a lot to the way Star Wars was in the 90s. They actually were very invested in Coruscant and stuff, and then obviously George took that and fleshed it out more in the prequels because he liked what Zahn was doing and the people like Kevin J. Anderson. But Luke's basically what you said, Mike, remembering all the events that happened in the Thrawn trilogy and Dark Empire, but he completely ignores Dark Empire 2 and 3 entirely. That didn't happen.
If it was a sitcom, he'd be like standing at his window looking at like, man, having some flashbacks, but not flashing back to Dark Empire 2 and 3.
It's pretty good. So, he's talking about how he's been changed through this experience of going to the dark side. He's doubting his ability of being an actual master. Is he ready to be a master? Or is he just a Jedi Knight?
He's notably not reminiscing about Jem, his potentially underaged student love interest that he got killed real quick in Dark Empire 2. So that's probably a good omission for the novel. Before we go any farther, we should say that Jesse reread the book, and
that's right.
I revisited this. I'm going to revisit this whole series listening to it on Audible. So the abridged, easy to listen to in a week while you commute version, read by Anthony Heald back in the 90s when this was recorded. I remember having this one on audio book when I was a kid too. And maybe the funniest thing about his narration, he does a good job with sound cues and all that. And his voices may not be accurate to the characters, but they're consistent enough that you can know who is talking. But his pronunciation of two things cracks me up every time I hear it.
Beespin?
No, not Beespin. He doesn't say that one enough. Coruscant.
Coruscant.
And Emperor Palpatine.
He also says Beespin, and I don't know why, but it drives me insane. I don't know why.
Well,
I think because Empire's my favorite movie, I think. maybe.
Well, he just doesn't say Bespin enough in the book, I think. Like Palpatine and Coruscant, I feel like they were said more.
Right.
But anyway, so that's the two different versions that we are, viewing this story through. So yeah, Luke is.
That's how he starts. That's how Luke starts the story, though. Right where we're at, and he's having these doubts about, am I even ready to be a master? Which is, I think, consistent with the Luke we've seen so far, because he's not that far from Return of the Jedi, Mike, and he's gone through some crazy stuff since then. Now we know, in this Legends timeline, we got Mindor, and then we have the Courtship of Princess Leia, the Thrawn trilogy, and then Dark Empire, and now the Jedi Academy trilogy. So if you guys have followed with us thus far, Luke's been through some interesting things, and a lot of them involving interesting relics of the Jedi past, which we're going to come up to in this book in a bit, which is cool. But this chapter ends after Luke's reminiscing. Luke's like, no, I'm going to do this. This needs to be done. The Jedi...
Although with all the things he's been through, he darn well better be questioning if he's ready.
Yeah, but Luke does something I find very interesting. He goes to the leaders of the New Republic, Mon Mothma, Admiral Akbar, all the generals, and Leia. And he basically presents to them the idea that I want to attempt to bring the Jedi Knights back to help restore peace and order to the galaxy. And I want them to be part of the New Republic. And I want to get you guys' blessing, basically, is what he asked for.
And this is a part of Dark Empire that's ignored, because he basically did this in Dark Empire. He was like, let me go to BIS and I'll learn all this stuff. And we saw how that turned out.
But he didn't train people or start an academy. If we're excluding Dark Empire 2 and 3, like this book is correctly doing so, he's basically saying, I'm ready to take the step and be a full-on master and train some students. Do I have the blessing in the New Republic?
I'm saying the difference is he ultimately ends up with the blessing here. And
right.
And I think it was Dark Empire 1. He was going against the will of the Republic Council or whatever.
That wasn't very Luke.
This time it worked out better for him.
This time's a lot more Luke. And then, of course, the third chapter, we go into Leia, and she's doing a lot of diplomatic things in the galaxy. But, we don't focus on Leia as much here, even though she's pretty good in this book, actually, Mike, I'll have to say, for the most part. So that's good.
Yeah, so I guess this would be a good time to say that a lot of this book, you could almost say this is like a Han-centric book. Would you agree?
You mean just it slightly favors Han over Luke and Leia?
Yeah, and in terms of
what he goes
story
through?
Importance, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they're all kind of on their own missions in this book, which is interesting. So I guess I'll agree with you, but also my only rebuttal to that is all three of them are separate this entire book. So I mentioned at the beginning of the book, Han and Chewie.
They are.
Han and Chewie get... they go down to Kessel, and bad things happen to Han and Chewie. So let's just preface what happens there.
Well, no, you're right. We should go into the two separate stories for Han and Leia. And I just meant that I feel like Han's has more lasting impact in
Han's got a really
Legends
cool story
universe.
in this book. Luke is essentially going all over the galaxy and doing quests in this book, but they're all forwarding his endgame in the next two books. So, but let's start with Han and Chewie. Han and Chewie basically get conscripted into the spice mines of Kessel, Mike. They
screw up,
Yeah.
they get captured, and they get punished.
Yeah, so if you guys have seen Solo now, which I hope you have, this was one of the first sources of the spice mines of Kessel we had. And Kevin J. Anderson kind of fleshed that out.
This might be the first novel source. It
might be.
They might have had it in like the West End Games books back then, but this might be the first novel appearance.
That's
of it.
right.
Don't quote me on that if I'm wrong, but this is definitely the first time it was fleshed out.
And very Solo-esque. They are captured by this gangster called Morth Duel, and he's somebody that Han has screwed over in the past, and Han kind of messed things up, and Jabba punished Morth Duel and took his eye from him, and now he holds it against Morth Duel holds it against Han forever. That he said basically, you sold me out to Jabba, and guess what? I run the spice mines now. So
Well, he sold Morith out to Jabba when he made the Kessel Run in 12 parsecs.
That's
by
right.
dumping his spice shipment. They combined all of that into one event that was a massive piloting accomplishment and criminal double crossing all at the same time.
right, which is really cool to see because now we see Solo, which is now canonical and takes traces of this. And there's things that are similar, things that are nothing alike, but it's funny that the essence of Han is still there in both of these stories with the Kessel Run. And so Chewie and Han are in a bad place, Mike. They get taken to the mines, and
They're in a bad place.
they don't
and
come
in
home.
The mines, they meet.
They don't come home.
Yeah, they spend a lot of the book there, but in the mines they meet a fan favorite character.
That's right.
Who has some impact down the line. His name is Mary Sue. That's right. The original
Wow.
Mary Sue of Legends is Kyp Durron.
Right.
If you're going to complain about Rey being good at everything, go back and check out the stuff this kid can do, especially in books 2 and 3 of this series.
I think that's a good analogy, Mike. If people are familiar with Rey, there's just a male Rey. So that
I don't think Rey has quite
this
done-
power level.
You know what? I'm not going to spoil our next 2 episodes.
There you go.
We'll
there
talk
you go.
about it when
That's
we
right.
get to
Please
it.
don't. Yeah, Chewie and Han run into a individual in the mines who's a young man, but they don't know he's a young man. They said he sounds like he's an older man who's been there for years, but essentially he's somebody who's grown up in the mines, and he befriends Han and Chewie, and they kind of watch each other's backs because they're down there, Mike, in the mines, and the mines are a lot scarier in this Legends book than they are in the Solo book, even though in Solo, they're still scary in Solo, but it's completely blind.
Although
A lot of the areas are completely
Yeah.
blind. You're just blind.
Well, and I will say there is a distinction between this and Solo. This is the spice
Yeah.
mines of Kessel,
Very
the
true, very
illicit
true.
drug mines. In Solo, we saw the somewhat more legitimate coaxium hyperfuel mines. We haven't actually seen the spice mines of Kessel. They might be this bad.
Yeah.
But they could be 2 separate resources that exist on Kessel in the now that we have the Solo film.
So I guess this, Mike, is a better time than any to talk about spice and glitter stem, because this is kind of the formation of this and these stories. We had basically this series and the young Han Solo trilogy that mentioned glitter stem as well. But this is going to come up again. We got to talk about it. It's just a drug in the galaxy. Was what spice and glitter stem are, and essentially they're mining this in the mines, and criminal overlords are using this for profit and or manipulation in the galaxy. Because drugs sell. So that's
What?
yeah. So if you've ever wondered when Han's talking about spice in the films, they're trying to flesh more of that out. And this,
He's talking about cocaine in Miami in the 1980s and stuff like that, coming up from South America.
yeah, I've always pictured it like
Glitter, stem, and spice is Star Wars cocaine.
cocaine, souped up cocaine. So there you go. But at the same time, we go back to Luke, and now he's been given governmental permission and resources to search out Force-sensitive Jedi and individuals in the galaxy.
That's right.
To start
Luke
his
actually
academy.
He gave out some search parameters to go over the galaxy and had some New Republic resources to help him find him. And the first student he goes after, it's on the planet Eel Shah, and the reason he goes there is it was a small settlement that was abandoned on this volcanic planet, and this small settlement of about 50 people was being kept alive by a leader who seemed to be able to sense earthquakes and other dangerous geologic events before they happened. So
Right.
Luke took that as a sign that that person might have some innate talent with the Force.
Right. So Luke goes to this planet to meet this individual, this leader, and he meets the guy, and the guy's name is Gantoris.
Do you remember how they described Gantoris' physical appearance? Because I do, and it's haunting. Okay, so he
He's
lives
buff.
on a lava planet, but he's got super pale skin. He's a big dude. He's beefy, but he's got like black hair and a long braid.
Yeah.
But he has no eyebrows and has plucked his eyelashes. So he's got no facial hair. That sounds super freaky.
It scared you. Well, there you go.
It was a very, very good descriptive work by Anthony Heald in the audiobook. I was like, oh man, I don't want to look at that guy.
Now, a fun fact, Mike, about Gantoris, which is going to lay some more plot foundations of the next 2 books. Gantoris does not trust Luke at first because Luke comes up in his Return of the Jedi get-up, his black robes, and Gantoris basically believes Luke to be this dark man, in quotes I say. And he says the dark man has been haunting his dreams and telling him that he can give Gantoris unimaginable powers if he follows him. And so Gantoris does not trust Luke because he thinks he's this dark man from his nightmares. So what does Gantoris do? He basically makes Luke go on a sabbatical, a walkabout in a way, on this planet to prove that Luke says who he is.
This is where the video game level starts.
That's right.
He says, you have to prove to me you can do these physical things for me to trust you and believe you're not this dark man who's here to kill me.
Yeah. So Luke goes through these video game trials. He survives some lava.
I'm making light of them. Some of them are kind of cool. The first
they're
one,
neat.
They're down in some underground caves. And Gantoris leaves abruptly, and Luke's like, "Hey, what's going on?" Oh, there's about to be a lava eruption. So Luke has to use the Force to, kind of ride a wave of steam and propel himself
Out of
this
out of
cave
the way, yeah.
and survive. Very the Force Unleashed video game, if you've played any of those.
Of course.
And then the second big trial is Gantoris is like, you see this river of lava? Walk across it. And there's, just a few little black stones, it looks like. So Luke's like, I'm a Jedi. I can lily pad hop across this. No big deal. Except it kind of was a big deal.
That's right. And then in very video game fashion and very cool fashion, the final test is after Luke makes it across the lava, there is a giant lava elemental worm that comes out, and Luke has to survive against it, basically.
Well, and that's what Luke was actually walking
Yeah, he had no idea
So walking
at first.
across it kind of pissed the thing off, and Luke had to fight it.
So Luke has to fight it, and he survives, and Gantoris is essentially shocked.
Shocker.
And Gantoris is like, I trust you're not this dark man, but I trust what you're saying. Because Luke essentially approaches Gantoris and says, I think you have the Force, and I want to teach you about the Force. And he's like, what's the Force? I don't really care about that. I just protect my people. But eventually he goes with Luke because Luke passes all these tests. He says, I'll only go with you, though. I'll only go if you find a place for my people to reside safely. And Luke says,
Cool.
I can do that. I can do that. So he has this small tribe of people.
Just to tell you what happens to them, because it doesn't impact the end of the story too much. The New Republic
Leia
finds home for them on Dantooine. Yeah, Leia finds home for them on Dantooine, the old abandoned rebel base that didn't get blown up in A New Hope.
Yep, perfect.
But once Gantoris trusts Luke, Luke has now acquired some ancient Jedi technology.
Oh, no.
And he's using what to me is described as a Scientology e-meter to measure thetans in people. It's some old Republic technology to measure the Force potential in others. And Luke doesn't quite understand how the device works. So he's not always understanding the information he's getting from it.
Right.
And he uses it on a few people throughout the story. It's kind of funny though, because sometimes it seems to work completely, sometimes it doesn't. But to me, it's just like this thing seems almost like it's supposed to be a midi-chlorian counter,
right,
without the word midi-chlorian.
Right. This is pre episode 1, right?
Yeah, but basically this thing doesn't work just like a Scientology e-meter. If you're a Scientologist listening to us, stop.
Wow. Wow, bold words. I like it.
But Luke ends up just using the Force to probe the mind of these people to judge their Force potential.
Luke uses that machinery to give him a vague idea, but really, he's Luke. He has plenty of Force powers to sense the Force in other people. But it is interesting, Mike, in a less funny sense. I mean, this might be very similar to Qui-Gon's blood test, old Republic test, where essentially it just checks how many midi-chlorians are in your blood, because the midi-chlorians, of course, give the Force a way to channel through the body. So I don't know. Pretty interesting that this was in 1994. We'll say that. It's strange though. But he gets.
I wonder what shape Scientology was in 1994. Did they have e-meters yet? I should look at that when we're done recording.
Oh man! So he gets Gantoris, and immediately Luke goes with Gantoris. He says, "I know of another. I know of another force sensitive person that I've heard about on Bespin, Bespin, and the audiobook." So Luke and Gantoris go to Bespin, and they encounter a elderly man on Bespin.
Yeah, this one is much less harrowing.
It's pretty cool.
The intel that was provided to Luke was let me back up. In Empire Strikes Back, we saw Cloud City. They mined Tabana gas. It's only one mining city of several on the planet that are mining these gas clouds, basically.
Right. Good Star Wars trivia.
And there were reports of this individual who was finding the fresh deposits or whatever before the big companies were. And Luke thought that might be showing some connection to the Force and the planet.
That's right. So Luke and Gantoris go and find this person, and it's pretty interesting. So this character, his name is Strain, and he has a very powerful ability with the Force, which is essentially empathy. And he's constantly affected by the thoughts and feelings of the living people and sentient things around him. And as a result, he's kind of sought out solace by himself on these Tabana gas platforms, away from Cloud City. I mean, he's like on this very small Tabana gas platform. And Luke finds him. And once again, similar to Gantoris, he's confused and distrustful of why someone would seek him out.
But he takes Luke a little more at his word than Gantoris does, because he sees a chance to end his solitude.
Right.
He doesn't have people depending on him like Gantoris
That's
does.
true. And he also says, can you teach me to control this? Because I can either be around people or away from people. The empathy thing is never off. And Luke says, I can teach you how to turn that off, basically. He's like, okay, I'm in. So his initial joining with Luke is essentially to control his kind of like his mutant powers. It's very Professor Xavier, you know?
I was about to say that.
Yeah, so he's like, please help me control this because this is too much for me. And Luke's like, I will do that, but I need you to give him what I have to teach you a chance to use the Force for good. And he's like, okay, I'll do that.
So Luke was not alone in his search for potential Jedi students. The book needed an excuse to have Lando do something for the first half. So Lando was bored and went with C-3PO to the Legends equivalent of Canto-Bight.
I know, right?
Because there's a gambler who frequently who showed gambling patterns of somebody with some sort of precognition of knowing what to bet on. So for those of you that are
listening.
Legends fanatics, but hate Canto-Bight, and I agree.
I am
Canto-Bight
listening.
is not perfect in The Last Jedi. It's I actually think it would be fixed by showing more of it, spending more time there to flesh it out. That's a different thing.
Different discussion entirely.
Lando goes to Canto-Bight, where they don't have Harry Potter creature racing; they have blob racing.
Yeah, they have Ditto Pokemon.
They literally call it blob racing. And there's a guy who they think is Force sensitive enough to predict who the winners are, so he's getting rich off of that. So it reminded me very much of the Canto-Bight scene from The Last Jedi when we got to this part.
Yeah, and I would say you probably would believe this, Mike, but that's what I thought of when I saw Canto-Bight the first time.
No, I believe that. I had forgotten about this.
I always thought
part.
this was a cool story because it's only Lando centric, Lando and 3PO. And it's cool to have Lando, even though he doesn't have the Force. Lando is using this midi-chlorian counter and trying to see if this guy is an actual Jedi or he's just lucky. And it's a cool side gambling story.
Well, and Luke has picked up 2 students on his own. Lando, unfortunately, does not pick up a third for him because this guy was rigging the blob races. How dare he?
He was a cheater. He was a cheater.
But basically, Lando catches a person fixing the races and ends up with 1 million credits or something off of it.
I love it.
So Lando enriches himself, doesn't find Luke any students, but hey, at the end of the day, he's not gonna say it's too bad.
Yeah. Meanwhile, we go back to Leia, and Leia is doing a lot of governmental duties. She's relocating people to planets. She's helping the New Republic fleet, go over the galaxy in different ways to quell, problems, and also just help people. And at the same time, finally, Leia's kids come back to her because they've been hiding with Winter, as we knew. Jason and Jaina, and they're old enough now, and the threat of Thrawn and Dark Empire is over, so they can come back to Leia. But at the same time, Leia hasn't heard from Han in 5 days now. He's 5 days late, something like that.
She was fine with Han being gone until she got those friggin' kids back, and she was like, "I need help. Where's
he
Han?
dead? I don't know. Let's come back.
Let's get the whole galaxy to look for him." But yeah, this is when people start to notice, oh, Han's been gone a long time, even for him.
Yeah.
But we know he went to Kessel with Chewie. So we should go look for him. Although Leia can't send the full New Republic search force because she's being a diplomat and apparently cares about Kessel reintegrating into polite galactic society.
That's interesting. Yeah.
So Luke leaves his new students for now to go with Lando aboard the Lady Luck to Kessel to look for Han, Chewie, and the Falcon.
I like it. Yeah. Meanwhile, we have Han, Chewie, and now Kyp Durron, our new young character who is helping Han and Chewie survive in the mines. And Mike, a lot of things happen in the mines. He might be using the Force. We're not sure yet, but
well, no, he is. But this is another Dark Empire connection I wanted to make.
Yeah, good point.
Kyp says he learned a little bit about the Force from Vima Dabota, the weird Jedi vagrant that Leia met on Nar Shaddaa in Dark Empire. So Vima is just somebody you can throw in a shady place if you need to spread a little bit of Force knowledge, I think, in Legends.
Yeah.
She doesn't make sense, but it was the same character that was mentioned.
Yeah, she basically told Kyp that he had a power of Force, but he didn't know what it was. He'd never heard of the Force. He'd never heard of the Jedi Knights. And she basically told him a few lessons on how to home it, but he has no idea what this is. And Han's like, "Kid, you have the Force, man." Like, he's like, "What? What is that?"
That's how the Force works.
Like, Han tells him what the Force is and what the Jedi are, and he's just blown away. But here's a fun part of the story, Mike. We have a lot of hijinks in the spice mines of Kessel. We have a lot of Indiana Jones Temple of Doom moments. We have Kyp, Han, and Chewie try to escape. There's giant spice spiders. They're on mine carts running away from the spice spiders and killing guards. They're just trying to get out of there and survive. They don't want to die down there. They don't want to be blind for the rest of their life. It's fun, but it's like you said, it's Han-centric.
It's super fun.
It's Han-centric, like you said.
And they end up stealing a shuttle or whatever to escape. And we forgot to mention, the Empire has a big part in this story.
Yeah, they haven't really happened yet. They're about to happen big time, though, when they get the shuttle. Yeah,
this is where it comes in, because they try to escape the planet Kessel.
Yeah.
They're damaged. They can't make the full jump out, so they think they found it. They think that Kyp has found them a safe place in the black hole cluster. He just couldn't sense the 4 Imperial Star Destroyers and secret weapons design installation there, which I had completely forgotten about this part upon.
Yeah, I remember you texting me, and I was happy that you.
When they were describing it, I was like, "Holy crap, that's right! This is where we get one of the
favorite
cooler." Legends villains, Imperial villain, Admiral Daala, a female admiral who she has been put in charge of defending this secret weapons facility. Basically, this is where the Death Star was developed and a bunch of other stuff. So she's basically in charge of Area 51, kind of in the middle of a black hole cluster.
Yeah, perfect. So if you guys can picture Kessel and Solo. The Empire basically has a secret base in there with 4 Star Destroyers, which is, we now know, a lot. Star Destroyers are worth several Rebel dreadnoughts or cruisers. They're kind of the best of the best, other than the Super Star Destroyer. And she's been hiding out there with her forces, developing weapons for the Empire, waiting for their time to be called, and they have no idea, Mike, what's happened. Basically, since Rogue One, they don't know what's happened from that point onward.
That's true.
That was the last time they had contact
they think
with Tarkin. Yeah,
yeah, they think Tarkin, Vader, and the Emperor are still alive. They're waiting for more orders. They capture Han, Chewie, and Kip and learn some bad news during their interrogation. We don't know that it wasn't one of Admiral Daala's Star Destroyers that the Falcon ran into in the Solo film.
that's very true. It's very true.
It could still
That'd
be
be
one.
pretty
of them.
exciting. Yeah, Admiral Daala is awesome. We're gonna get more of
She
her.
is.
Obviously, more than just this book.
In some aspects, I like her more than Grand Admiral Thrawn. Don't kill me,
Big
fanboys.
words. Well, I mean, I think she's loved as much as Thrawn. She's just known less than Thrawn by the general audience. If that makes sense.
But those who know her love her as much. I'm with you.
So
Yeah.
yeah, she's really prominent, brilliant admiral, very similar to Thrawn. I'm trying to remember her age in this, Mike. Around what age she is? Do you remember?
I think they describe her
Late
as
40s.
Tarkin picked early 40s, I think, because Tarkin picked her up early from the Academy and saw her potential. And the old Empire, even in Legends, still didn't promote women to, positions of power. But Tarkin decided to make her an admiral in charge of his secret base that not even the Emperor knew about.
Which is pretty cool.
So she was relatively young when she was given this command. So she's not an aging Imperial warlord like the rest of the people in charge of the Empire at this time in Legends. She's actually a, sharp, spry, dangerous commander.
Yeah, what's really cool about her story, which is somewhat ties to the new canon, but there's a new book in the new canon called Lost Stars, and we actually see Tarkin in that series finding brilliant young people and conscripting them into his basically mentoring, and he kind of mentored Daala a lot, so she learned a lot of his tactics and took it her own way. And she's just awesome, man. I've always been a huge fan of her, and this is so awesome. This is the first time we see her. She has long red hair that's been braided. She has the full admiral wear.
Because women in Star Wars have to have fancy, memorable hair.
Well, that's fine.
That's what happens when a bunch of old dudes write your
Well,
books.
Leia always had memorable hair, so I feel like that's part of it. Yeah, I feel like it started there, and it's like the tone has been set. But it just speaks to her, like you said, similar to Thrawn. She's a woman. Thrawn was an alien. Both were things that were discriminated against by the Empire, and the fact that they've risen so high in the Empire speaks so much of their intelligence and their accomplishments, which is great.
It's funny because Thrawn had his secret alien, non-human admiral. Tarkin had his secret female admiral. If only they had talked to each other and shared these secrets.
Man.
Can you imagine Thrawn and Daala working together?
That would have been too much. It would have been too much.
Yeah, Star Wars would have ended with this book.
So let's talk real quick
if
about
Thrawn had known. If Thrawn had known to talk to Daala in the Monstration. Anyway, we need to get back to Luke, but there's two big points we need to hit about this military installation.
Perfect. That's what I was going to say. Yeah.
Encountered. Yeah. The first one is the next super weapon, the Death Star times 10.
Right.
It's a tiny little spaceship called the Sun Crusher that instead of blowing up planets, blows up the star of a solar system that therefore kills all the planets in that system.
Right. It's pretty sci-fi, but it's also pretty fun because just blowing up a sun and watching what happens after that is pretty intense. But yeah, it's a little ship. It's like smaller than the Falcon, I think, if I remember correctly.
Oh no, it is not even like Imperial shuttle size. It can only fit a crew of 6, I think is what it said. But it's an analog to Starkiller Base in The Force Awakens.
Right.
Starkiller Base absorbs the energy from a star to then destroy planets. This destroys the star that therefore kills the planets around it. Again, Star Wars science, very loosey-goosey with the rules.
Oh, yeah.
But instead of destroying one planet, this one destroys a bunch at the same time. And it's got some fancy experimental armor that this thing could only be damaged by a Death Star blast. conventional weapons don't work against it. That's why it's so small.
Right.
Because this
So
armor was so
expensive.
hard to fabricate.
Yeah, and the armor obviously is intentional because the Sun Crusher has to be kind of present by the star to launch the munitions at it, and then it has to survive the blast. So that's the whole tech. But what's really interesting about Daala and her men is they've been waiting to hear from Tarkin to when they need to deploy the Sun Crusher. And Daala has some scientists that we're introduced to, Mike, and I'm sure you want to talk all about this. You look so excited.
I'd forgotten about this character. So we're introduced to the person who designed the Death Star and the Sun Crusher and other super weapons. Her name is Qui Zux, Xwixux. And I get what they're going for, but she's played off as, oh, the Empire's just providing me resources in the lab. I designed the Death Star to destroy dead planets and the Sun Crusher to clear out dead systems. And I designed the World Devastators too. They're supposed to be useful. Oh, no, that's what she designed them for. And the Empire said, sure, that's what we're using them for. And she didn't ever think about the destructive potential of them.
She's like, I designed the World Devastators to terraform, destroyed worlds just to make, ships for the Empire. And it's like, well, did you think about them using it on a healthy world like Mon Cala?
She's a little bit too much of the naive, stupid scientist.
Right. The sci-fi
it's a little
trope.
too heavy-handed. Yeah. Like, she's going to be a character that comes back in future stories, and it's when we're away from the super weapons, she's more bearable. But in this initial meeting, it's like, really?
Well, let's jump to the chase with her, Mike. It takes her a while. Han tells her everything the Empire used her weapons for. She doesn't believe it. And she finally hears from the horse's mouth. She hears from Daala the intentions that Daala has with the Sun Crusher. And it kind of wakes her up. And she's like, that Han guy wasn't lying. And she essentially goes and rescues Han. And then Han goes and rescues Chewie and Kip with her.
And they escape on the Sun Crusher.
So she's now a fugitive of the Empire. But, good for her for finally realizing what was going on with all her scientific brilliance was being manipulated for destruction.
So the climax of the book, Act 3, is this happens all the time in Star Wars. It's a giant galaxy, but all these people meeting up in one spot. We have the Sun Crusher fleeing an Imperial fleet in the Kessel black hole cluster. The whole thing was called the Maw black hole cluster. At this point, Luke and Lando have found the Millennium Falcon because it can't be destroyed. They've gone from Lando's ship, the Lady Luck, to the Falcon, and they are running from from Morith Duel and the Kessel pirates.
Yeah, so we have Lando and Luke piloting the Falcon away from Kessel. Because they came to get Han and they can't find Han and they're very confused.
But they found the Falcon.
Right. But we have Lando and Luke flying the Falcon, which is actually cool. And, two great pilots, so that's fun. Them flying the Falcon together.
So Sun Crusher running to the right, Falcon running to the left. No. They say, oh, hey, hi, guys. And they've each got an army chasing them, so there's a big space battle that ensues afterward.
But the space battle ends because this story has basically just begun. We've laid all the foundation for this trilogy. And this story does end with Leia and Mon Mothma finally finding a place for Luke to start his Jedi Academy, his Jedi Praxium, is what they call it a lot in these books. And that is none other than New Hope, Star Wars A New Hope's Yavin 4, the rainforest planet with the great temples. And they basically tell Luke, we found you a spot that's remote enough, but it also has infrastructure for people to, to live, right? And to be safe. And Luke is pretty pleased. And guess what? Han goes, Luke, I got this kid, man. His name's Kip. He navigated us through the Maw. He has force powers. Take him. And so Luke now has Kip, Gantoris, Streen. And guess what? Just throw in Cam, too, from the Dark Empire storyline randomly.
Cam, and then I think he said he ended up with a dozen total students.
That's right, Mike. I'm glad you mentioned that. Tying everything we've actually talked about Legends together so far, which is actually really cool that Kevin J. Anderson does this. Luke actually goes back.
We've got these 3 important people and then 9.
Yeah,
others.
Luke actually goes back to Dathomir and grabs several of the Dathomirian witches that were, using the Force for good, not for bad. Not the Night Sisters, but just the witches, and he takes them as well.
Former Night Sister is one of them.
Right. And
yeah,
he takes a couple of them with him. So he has basically a lot of people he's encountered in these stories so far, and he's like, you know what? I'm going to do this. And I've got a little bit to read here from the final epilogue chapter. Luke Skywalker, Jedi Master, stood atop the great temple on the 4th moon of Yavin. Below his feet lay the empty throne room and grand audience chamber with skylights open to the sun. Garbed in his new Jedi cloak, garbed in his new Jedi cloak, wearing his lightsaber at his side, Luke felt the warmth bathing him. So he's looking at the rainforest, but we move ahead and we talk about, to begin the actual training of the temple, Luke tried to recreate all the exercises Yoda had taught him on Dagobah, as well as the practice sessions Obi-Wan had begun. Luke also had the ancient Jedi holocron, the visual historical database Leia had taken from the resurrected Emperor's stronghold. He had studied the information from the hidden repository of the Jedi knowledge on Dathomir. He had many tools, and his students carried inside themselves doorways to great power. But then again, Luke worried. What if one of his trainees, or even more than one, fell to the dark side? Would he himself have the power to bring them back? Who is this dark man that was haunting Gantoris' dreams with prophecies of destruction? And then, Luke has some more musings. And then Luke's looking at the temples to think about what his students are going to become. And then the book ends with, it was the perfect place to train a new Jedi order, Luke thought.
Luke's thinking, I took a 3-week intensive course. I've got a textbook.
I've been to the dark side.
A library card to the Chun Thor, and I've been to the dark side. Surely I can do this.
Yeah. God help me, is what he's basically saying. So, but no, you're right, Mike. I read this to you guys, and I jump around because we don't have time to listen to me read all this. But I find this interesting, Mike, because our show is unique in this aspect where we've gone through this stuff directly, and now we have direct references. So, Luke has Yoda's trainings, Obi-Wan's trainings, the holocrons that he found in Palpatine's storehouses, the database from Dathomir of the ancient Jedi prequel Jedi ship. The Chun Thor, perfect. And then he also has knowledge he's learned from going to the dark side and some of the people he's met in his, 5 years post Return of the Jedi. Now 6 years, right? So
they notably left out the Jedi library he found on Ossus in Dark Empire.
That doesn't exist. Like I said.
It doesn't exist. But again, they're leaning into Dark Empire 1. Definitely don't care about.
They're like, Empire. Palpatine collected those holocrons in Dark Empire 1. That makes sense. Let's take that. But ignore everything in Dark Empire 2 and 3. Yeah. Like I said, Mike, I'm glad the authors treat the comics the same way I did in the 90s. That I said they're just kind of like loose guidelines. They are not canonical of this original storyline. So, that's fun.
All right, so let's hop back into our second question. How do the events and characters Luke encounters impact his development as a hero? And this book is sort of laying the foundation for Luke transitioning role from being fighter or galactic warrior and hero to teacher. He's finding his first group.
Yes, very good.
And along the way, he still gets to play a video game on Eel Shaw with Gantoris.
I love it.
No, Force Unleashed story.
Sure.
Yeah, but the just overall gameplay and ridiculous force powers were kind of cool.
Yeah. But this is also Luke's first experiences with a Jedi Academy, Mike, which we see as a formative part of the Legends Luke and now the canonical Luke. So it's so interesting. This all starts here, and everything we've read to this point has led to this moment for Luke.
Yeah. So he's not leveling up like we've called it in the past. He's sort of growing up a little bit. He's got to go get a job now. and he chose
Yeah, and he
teacher.
didn't do anything extreme in the story. We didn't mention that, but I mean, he doesn't do anything absurd. He uses the Force in interesting ways to pass some tests Gantoris uses, and he uses the Force to reach out and sense the Force in other people. But unlike Dark Empire or some other things that might come later, completely consistent with the Luke we saw post Return of Jedi, Thrawn series.
He's avoiding saying spoiler alert because I said that.
No, that's not
totally
true.
Wanted
That's not
to
true.
say it right there.
So this is a good start for Luke here, and you're right. He is transitioning into teacher, and like that final epilogue chapter said, Luke Skywalker, Jedi Master, stood atop the Great Temple on Yavin 4. So he is now considering himself a Jedi Master, and he's taking up that mantle with the fears as well.
Yeah.
Which I really like.
So our last question, would Luke's experiences in this story make him different than Luke we met in The Last Jedi? I don't really think so overall. The only thing I can think of is perhaps encountering another super weapon on the Kessel run that could destroy solar systems may have affected his actions in some way if he'd learned about the possibility of a Star Killer base when, 15 years before the events of The Force Awakens. But that's sort of a stretch.
Yeah, it's sort of a stretch, and that's sort of relative and trivial. And I think our main Luke story here, which is Luke starting a Jedi Academy and seeing what happens, for better or for worse. And I feel like that so far is the same with what Luke tries to do in The Last Jedi, and I think has success at
Right,
first.
but I'm just saying. I'm saying if we were
Yeah.
in canon when Luke was, learning and leading up to starting his Jedi Academy, I don't think he could have been able to bring himself to start a Jedi Academy with a Sun Crusher out there. He would have had to stop that first.
He would
is
have
all
to go
I'm
back
saying.
to
But that's very
the
trivial.
fighter Luke, maybe, yeah, or just it'd have been different, yeah. But Michael, what I like about the series, we're introduced to Luke starting an academy. We're introduced to all the stuff on Kessel, the spice mines, all that good stuff. New characters, new Jedi apprentices for Luke, namely Kip is the most important, Gantoris as well, and Streen, which is these guys will come up around. But most importantly, we're introduced to the new villains. We're introduced to Daala and her fleet, and Daala's super weapon, the Sun Crusher. And guess what? We got 2 more books left of this series. So
And we have recovered from Dark Empire 2.
yeah, and what I like about this book, Mike, a lot, closing this book out, is it doesn't do too much. It doesn't get too extreme. It just kind of lays the foundation for the rest of the series, which I thought was refreshing. And I thought it gave all the characters fair time to be enjoyable. I got some enjoyable time with Lando, Leia, Han, Chewie, and Luke. And it was all good stuff. And, we didn't mention this earlier, but I'll mention it now. We got some moments with 3PO nannying Han and Leia's kids, and also being annoyed by Han and Leia's kids. Also singing to their kids and making them go to sleep with nursery rhymes, which seems like a very 3PO thing. But he did it neurotically, of course.
Yeah. And I dunk on Legends a lot. And a lot of it is for good reason. But I actually thoroughly enjoyed going back to this book. I was dreading it a little bit. Jesse can mention, like months ago, I was like, man, I don't want to do this. But I actually had a really good time going back to this story. It was both nostalgic and, just sort of a fun Star Wars story. So I enjoyed this one way more than I expected to. So if you haven't read it, we gave you the quick overview from Luke's perspective. It's worth checking out the whole thing.
Yeah, the Han stuff is really fun, guys, and Leia stuff too. Leia and Mon Mothma and Akbar laying the infrastructure for the New Republic is very interesting as well. Highly recommend this. Check it out on Audible.
Yeah, that's right. So we've got a new promotion for patrons of the Canon Cantina. Audible is offering a free audiobook download with a 30-day trial to give you the opportunity to check out their service. This week, we're yet again recommending a book from the Jedi Academy Trilogy. This time, we're recommending Part 3, Champions of the Force, again by Kevin J. Anderson. So at this point, we've recommended all 3
You should
parts.
listen to all
and
3,
like
yeah.
I said, this is how I'm revisiting the story. So we'll be covering Part 3 in 2 weeks, and next week we'll be covering Part 2, which is Dark Apprentice. So give them a listen before we talk about it. If you've recently read those books or if you just want to try something else, you can download any other audiobook for free by checking out audible.com. So to download your free audiobook, go to www.audibletrial.com/thecanoncantine. Again, that's www.audibletrial.com/thecanoncantine for your free audiobook. And that'll do it for books today. It's been a while since we've checked what's happened on the HoloNet. Let's jump over there.
And now for a HoloNet News exclusive.
So we've had a lot of small Star Wars
Yeah.
news stories happen since we've had a chance to talk about them. So we're going to hit not all of them, but a few of them. Probably my personal favorite
I knew it.
was Kevin Smith. Newly skinny Kevin Smith
That's right.
visited the set of Episode 9 for... he was there for a week or two. He did some interview on one of those morning talk shows and then on some other
Good Morning
podcast
America,
or
yeah.
something. But yeah, the big one. He went to visit JJ on set,
gosh.
and he just said some cool things. He said he'd seen some of the biggest sets that he'd ever
That's right.
seen. JJ's not managing sets; he's managing a small city. He said he'd seen things that were all the Star Wars universe, all the Star Wars movies, so maybe tying back into prequels or whatever. Said his mind was blown with the whole thing, and he maybe. This could be a fun part to maybe guess who. He said that he watched a career best performance that literally made him
Mark.
cry. So I wonder who gave
Mark.
that. Can Mark top what he did
question.
in The Last Jedi?
Potentially, yeah. If this is the last Skywalker movie, I feel like if they gave Mark a good part, this would be the time. I don't know. The only reason I say Mark is because
Is because he's in the next Kevin Smith
yeah,
movie. He also
Kevin
used this
Kevin
as
is
an
kind of
opportunity
obsessed
to
with
announce the
Mark, and
sequel
Mark was
to-
obviously
to
in
Jay and Silent
Kevin's movies, Jay and Bob, and I don't know. I just don't think he would say that about anybody. I mean, he might say that about somebody else, maybe Adam Driver or something, but I think it's Mark, and that's probably the safe answer. But that's whatever. It's speculation.
Yeah, and that's
I don't care. I'm
definite
super excited.
good guess.
Whoever it is, if Kevin Smith,
Yeah.
a director
Well-
who's a good director, and a nerd who is a smart, intelligent, well-versed nerd, says he saw a career, a career-defining performance in his favorite franchise, and he's a fan of a lot of franchises, that's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
So
I sort of took it as it's a young
I thought
career.
of that too. Yeah.
So I think that Daisy Ridley as Rey might be the popular choice. I'm going to go with John Boyega
Ooh.
made him cry with a Finn
That would be fun.
performance. Which that could be horribly sad.
Yeah.
If he gets permanently friend-zoned with Rey, if Poe decides not to go out with him, if Rose is mean to him some more, who knows? But,
Or let's go darker.
Um,
Finn dies for the Resistance, but something happens. He has a heroic death for the greater good of the galaxy for the Resistance.
but to make it the darkest, that's after he dumped. That's after Poe dumped Finn, right? Yeah.
And Rose watched. Yeah.
Oh, the worst.
Love triangle.
Who knows? But anyway, everything that Kevin Smith said,
Yeah, I loved it.
was super exciting. Glad he
My-
survived that heart attack and got himself healthier so he could
My
go.
favorite thing is he's like, I can't say anything. And then they're like, but what about this? He's like, all right, I'll tell you a little bit. And you're like, oh no. He probably got a talking to from
Well, and
somebody.
I don't know. I don't feel like he gave anything away because at this point we've seen enough behind the
True,
scenes
true.
featurettes and clips to know that these sets are massive and to know that there are great performances given on these sequel trilogy movies. So it's just more positive confirmation, I felt like. He said JJ is doing the Lord's
I
work.
love that. And if you guys heard our last week's episode with the War Starts at Midnight guys, I mentioned the tail end of this Kevin Smith thing. I said basically that Kevin Smith was so inspired by JJ's Lord's work that he thought it was finally time to announce he's doing the next Jay and Silent Bob film. And
Yeah.
he's like, he felt inspired. He felt refreshed as a director. He watched, 2 weeks of Star Wars essentially, and he came back refreshed and ready and pumped, which is really cool. Good stuff.
Do you have a favorite Kevin Smith movie?
Shooting from the Hip, I'm not sure. I'm not a huge fan of his, but I think he does some pretty subversive stuff in the horror genre.
Okay. I'm not the hugest fan either. I just
The
thought I would
Walrus
ask,
deeply
since you're
disturbed
the
me,
film nerd.
but Red State was pretty good. I don't know if you've seen either of those films, but both horror films he's done.
I don't think so.
You would like Red State for sure. You would not like The Walrus. I don't think I would recommend The Walrus to anyone, but he's pretty extreme at times with his comedy or his exploitation, but sometimes he's in the middle, which I really like. But Red State's a pretty interesting, I don't even know what you call it. What kind of horror you call it? Political paranoid type horror. It's more political thriller than horror, but it's definitely horror. But cultish stuff in there. But he's cool. I just like him. Like, I like him more than his directorial work. I like his attitude on Batman. I like his attitude on Spider-Man. I like his attitude on Star Wars. He likes all the things I like, and he has a good attitude about all of them, and I like that.
Yeah. If you care, my favorite Kevin Smith movie.
Yes.
It's hard to beat the
course.
original Clerks. Randall and Dante. I wasn't even supposed to be here today. They have that talk about the innocent contractors that the rebels blew up on the Death Star.
No, it's definitely a homage to, all the good Star Wars things, and he has to point that out.
If Clerks happened 20, 25 years later, Randall and Dante would definitely have had a podcast. Maybe we are just future Randall and Dante talking about this Star Wars stuff.
I mean, maybe.
We're not working at a quick stop to talk about it.
And I got to mention before I forget, and I keep calling it the Walrus. It's called Tusk. I don't know why I always call it the Walrus. Beatles fan here.
I am he is you are me.
But also, he also directed several episodes of the new Supergirl and the new Flash. So if you're a fan of those things, he's done several episodes of those shows.
Yeah. So we'll move on from that to our next piece of news. For those of you that are fortunate enough to not be rereading old books, there are new books being announced in the Star Wars universe. And a favorite that people have seen is Thrawn Treason. It's the third book in a new Thrawn trilogy by Timothy Zahn. It's got a neat cover. Thrawn's looking all brooding on it, and this time Palpatine is over his shoulder. So in the second book, it was Vader. First book, he was kind of by himself. Now it's Palpatine, and it's called Treason, so maybe he's double-crossing the Emperor. I'm just going to read a tweet from Del Rey Books. I think it was Del Rey Books. I copied and pasted without the title. Del Rey, don't get mad at me. Set before the finale of Rebels, Thrawn's imperial loyalty is tested. He crosses paths with Orson Krennic, and his protege, Eli Vanto, returns with dire warnings about Thrawn's homeworld.
Interesting. So there you go. More Star Wars books that we probably can't read, Mike.
Well, I know. We've missed out on a couple new books because we're busy doing all this
research
old stuff. I started the first Thrawn book. I think I finished the first Thrawn book. Found it a little dry.
So you told me I've yet to read all three yet, so I'm very excited to read all three.
Didn't get to the second one where he has his encounters with Anakin, Padme, and potentially Darth Vader because I don't know the full plot of that. But if you're going to sell me on a tweet, this is the one to do it. When you have Thrawn crossing paths with Krennic and potentially the
I will
Emperor.
mention while we're here, Mike, despite all of our self-imposed reading that we're doing for this series and this podcast, I will read Queen's Shadow in a month or two when it comes out. And is it February when it comes out? I will absolutely read that book, and maybe we'll do a bonus episode or something. But Queen's Shadow will get mentioned in some way, even though it doesn't involve Luke, because I want to read a Padme book that's good, and I like E.K. Johnson. So there you go.
That's right. So I think that's all we've heard about Thrawn Treason so far. So now we're going to move on to the screen. We've gotten some more Mandalorian news. I was pretty hesitant about this thing when we first heard. I just didn't want to get my hopes up. But we keep hearing awesome things about it, right?
The casts have been actually more locked down now, Mike. So we told you guys weeks ago that Pedro Pascal was the lead, and that has been fully confirmed by StarWars.com now, so we can actually talk about it. We get excited about it. We have the Red Viper, all this good stuff, like Agent
Whiskey, if you're a Kingsman 2 fan.
So I'm thrilled, and we have other actors as well, right, Mike?
Well, and we've already talked a little bit about Gina Carano and Carl Weathers confirmed.
Yes,
you got a stew going, baby. But you thought those were crazy. We've now confirmed that Nick Nolte is going to be in a Star Wars TV series. What planet do we live on? Yes, Werner Herzog is in Star Wars. Yeah, that's pretty
insane too. Werner Herzog.
And Giancarlo Esposito, Gus Fring from Breaking Bad, is going to be in Star Wars
people.
Also. Holy crap. We don't know if some of these could just be voices, provided to CG characters. I personally hope that Nick Nolte is playing a version of his character from Tropic Thunder where he's faking having prosthetic hands on both arms. And who knows, maybe Giancarlo Esposito is playing a version of Gus Fring that has a cyborg half of his face or something. But these three names I saw and just got super excited about.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Werner Herzog, and that's pretty wild. Like, he has such an iconic voice and presence. So him in Star Wars is thrilling to me. I mean, he's a director, he's a writer, he's an actor. So, like, just all these people, you're right, Mike, they have so much notoriety around their names. Nick Nolte is wild.
This is what happens when you move to Orlando to be closer to Disney World, like he said in the Parks and Rec episode.
Yeah, good reference.
He moves to Orlando and he gets put in Star Wars.
Yeah,
and there were two more big names. Emily Swallow, who I did not recognize, but I looked up. She's most known for The Mentalist, and Omid Abtahi, who I recognize his picture, and I've just seen him in a bunch of
Fringe,
things.
right?
He was in some of Fringe, which I love that show. American Gods was also a pretty good show, and in one of the Hunger Games movies, which Hunger Games movies, whatever. But I'd seen him in something before.
Remember that time on our Twitter, Zach was comparing Hunger Games to Star Wars?
No, I almost said that, but I did that on my personal one, not the show, so people probably haven't seen it.
Okay, you can cut this out then. I want to reference it so bad, but I guess I can't.
I almost said the same thing.
Delete. And the last bit of news here, Mike, is something I'm very excited about and very passionate about. I never know how to pronounce this guy's last name. Maybe Google can help me out. Maybe you can help me out, Mike. But his name is Ludwig Göransson, maybe is his last name. I always just call him Ludwig.
I'm going to go with Ludwig Göransson, but I don't know. That sounds a little more right, but I have nothing to.
So I'm going to give you my background on Ludwig. I've basically known him.
I'm pretty sure it is Ludwig, though.
Yeah, I mean that's what Donald Glover says, so that's what I'm going off of. I know Ludwig from basically 2005 onward as Donald Glover's personal producer / co-writer on all the Childish Gambino works, which gets crazier here because we're talking about Ludwig. He has now been confirmed as the composer for The Mandalorian. So this is like a weird full circle Star Wars thing. We have Donald Glover as Lando, and we have his co-writer of the Childish Gambino music, Ludwig, as the composer of this. And guess what? Ludwig has done a lot of incredible film scores. He's done a lot of film scores recently. He's been getting a lot of work, so it's pretty cool to see that he's doing Star Wars now, but he's done Fruitvale Station, Creed 1 and 2. He's done Venom recently. He does Black Panther recently. He did music for Community and New Girl. And obviously he got a Grammy, Mike, on his work with Childish Gambino on the track Redbone, which was, of course, in Get Out. Yeah.
The album.
Track Redbone. And
yeah,
the album.
The album.
Awaken
What was
My
the
Love.
album called? I've got it.
Yeah. So I've been following Ludwig basically since Childish Gambino's inception, since I'm as Chris said in our last episode, a Donald Glover shill-in, which I am, and he is as well. Great. This is awesome. So it's awesome to see young guys that have been up and coming, and now he's working on Star Wars. Him and Donald have some fun conversations to have now, I think, about...
Yeah, there's only one turd on that list of films and other works that you mentioned.
Oh, wait. Like a turd and the wind.
I wish I could say that was intentional. I'd forgotten that line was in that terrible
you
movie.
intentionally
Well done,
got
sir.
that.
You earned that. You earned that.
That movie, I've got a lot of
Venom's
thoughts
a
on
bad
that movie. Venom was great. The movie was bad. And that was most of that movie was Venom being good. So it's hard to gauge that movie, Mike. We've talked about this. We'll move on past it. But he did the music, and the music seemed fine.
At some point, we will record an episode talking about that.
That's
movie.
bonus content. Talk about Venom and Carnage. Why not? I can do it all day. But so awesome to have Ludwig on the Star Wars family now. And like I said, him and Donald's cocktail hours are going to be very, very interesting now. I also got to mention too, Mike, when Gambino tours, like Ludwig is on stage performing instruments with Donald Glover. So like, if you've ever seen Donald Glover perform as Childish Gambino on stage, Ludwig has been there performing guitar, keyboards, all sorts of instrumentation, backup vocals, good stuff. So exciting news. He was just confirmed as the composer of The Mandalorian.
Yeah. And that'll do it for this round of news from the HoloNet. We're going to hop over to the Dejarik table where Jesse has a lot of news.
Think. You want to make that move. You want to make that move. You made that move, okay.
I guess I'll have to destroy that little guy.
Somehow I never get bored with winning. No, you can't wipe them off. They're holograms. Hey, Chewie, relax. Hey.
All right, so we're here. We're back. We're back at the Dejarik table, and I hope you guys have been having a fun time watching us on our stream. If you don't know about our stream, it's twitch.tv/The Canon Cantina. It's spelled exactly like you'd imagine it. And what's really cool about our stream, I highly recommend you guys going to the page and following us, because not only will it update you on our streams that are currently happening live, but you can actually watch all of our past streams there. And the goal with the Twitch stream is Mike and I are going to stream a lot of tabletop and video Star Wars games, and you guys get to watch them with us. And if you miss the stream, that's fine. Just go look at the stream video collection. So I have been streaming a lot of Battlefront 2 lately, guys, because as you know, there was huge updates to the game. We had Grievous, we had Obi-Wan, we had the Geonosis event, we had a lot of good updates and patch things that happened to the game, and there's more coming to the game right now, so let's go over that. Currently right now in the game, there's a holiday event. So basically from right now when you're listening to this episode, all the way to December 27th, there's a holiday event where all vehicles, heroes, and reinforcements in the game cost 25% less battle points, and everybody gets 50% XP in all game modes. So what does that mean? That means if you jump on Battlefront between now and the 27th, you get more XP, and everything in the game costs less points. So if you want to be that hero, it's maybe a little too high for you to get in some matches. It's going to be easier to attain. If you want to get that, maybe that Trade Federation tank or whatever it is, it's going to be less points to acquire in a match. So what does this mean for the game? More heroes in battles, more vehicles in battles, more craziness, which I always enjoy. It makes the game more exciting to me. But starting December 28th onward, there's a new event. The new event is called Power, Unlimited Power. That is a Palpatine line. And this will be running from December 28th all the way to January 1st to the New Year. So this is the New Year event. And this is a crazy, crazy mode, Mike. A lot of people, there's been so many people excited about this and so many people freaked out about this event. So what the event is all 9 heroes will be simultaneously be able to be played on both sides of the battle. There's no spawn timers for anybody. The cost of heroes, vehicles, and reinforcements will be reduced by 75%. It's going to be pure madness. And I'm going to be streaming a lot of this, guys. I'm going to be streaming up till Christmas, but I'm also going to be streaming post-Christmas, this crazy unlimited power event, because no, it's not going to be competitive or strategic. A lot of people have said that, like the no spawn timers, the 75% reduced heroes. But it's going to be chaotic. It's going to be fun. It's definitely going to be fun to watch on the stream. So I hope you guys join us there. And January 1st onward, Mike, we have the new stuff. We've been talking about Battlefront for some time. You and I have been talking about basically over the last 6 months. So let's go and talk about what those are, because they are finally been locked in fully what the release dates are. So in January, we have the release of Count Dooku to the game. And then we have the release of the Coruscant Guard Clone Troopers. So if you think about Clone Wars, these are the clone troopers in the Senate, if that makes sense. So January is going to be a good month. After all these events, we're going to have Dooku and all these new clone trooper guards. Then in the month of February, we have a lot of things. This is kind of like a Battlefront 2.0 patch in a way, or you'd call it 3.0 patch because 2.0 came out last year with the squad system. In February, we have the release of Anakin Skywalker for the light side. We have the 501st Legion for the clone troopers appearances. So we have the clone troopers from the Execute Order 66 stuff, which everyone's familiar with from Revenge of the Sith. And most importantly, we have an entirely new game mode that they have not yet to name. It was called Titan mode something in the old game. But essentially, it's the mode in Battlefront that encompasses all parts, Mike, if you remember the old game. It starts out with Starfighter Assault. It goes to a capture point inside a capital ship. And the very end of it is kind of like a Galactic Assault strike hybrid where you blow up the capital ship. And with that's coming new capital ship interiors and new capital ship maps. So we're fighting through the Venator class Star Destroyers, the Galactic Republic, and the Separatist Dreadnoughts, which is like General Grievous's Dreadnought. And so we got new maps, which are those ships, and then you're going to be flying in and taking over and whole new modes. So a lot happening in Battlefront. They haven't even announced yet what's happening in March and April, so we'll see what happens there.
Are you about done yet? I'm almost finished with this second round of Smash Brothers while you were talking.
Are you playing Ice Climbers again?
Yeah, no, I'm maining Ice Climbers, Mega Man, and Samus.
You have Mega Man? I don't have him yet. Man.
Yeah, I do. I love Mega Man.
Dang. Yes, Mike, I'm done. That was quite a mouthful because I had to talk about all the December events, all the January and February releases. This game is on fire right now. So, like, I saw a tweet from somebody recently that said, who knew the end of 2018, the beginning of 2019 would be the year of Battlefront, and other companies like Blizzard are struggling. That's another subject for another Dejarik Table, but EA DICE is doing incredible things right now in Battlefront. They're on top of their game, and they are streamlining the game and new content. It feels like every week, Mike. So that's crazy. I can't keep up even with the stream, but we'll get there. But if you guys want to follow along with the stream, follow us on twitch.tv/the Canon Cantina. I will be streaming a lot of Battlefront during the holidays. I have some time off from work, so I'm going to be working on the podcast and streaming some Battlefront stuff with friends, some by myself, and you guys get to see these crazy modes with me. So please join me and talk in our chat. We would love to talk to you guys. This is something Mike and I are trying to get fully in the rotation, but something I had to mention, Mike, while we're here in the Dejarik Table, something new I'm attempting to try. I don't know what the timeline is going to be on all these games, Mike, but essentially I had this idea because we're going through the Legends timeline, and I thought it'd be really cool to go through the old Star Wars LucasArts video games that fall into the Legends timeline where we currently are, and that would be the Jedi Knight games. And Mike and I have a rich history in the Jedi Knight games, almost too much. We played almost more of Jedi Knight than any other game back in the day. It would rival Rogue Squadron and X-Wing versus TIE Fighter as well. And there's several Jedi Knight games. I think there's 4 off the top of my head, Mike. Is that right? If you want to include Dark Forces.
Sorry, I just got worked by a Jigglypuff. Are we doing Jedi Knight now?
Jigglypuff is... That's fair.
Okay, cool.
Dark Forces 1, Dark Forces 2, Jedi Outcast, and Jedi Academy, correct? And those are the ones we got to mention.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to start doing, guys, on the stream outside of Battlefront is I'm going to start streaming some of these games in order, canonically. I don't know if we're going to do Dark Empire 1, but we're probably going to do Dark Empire 2 onward and show you guys this, the old Legends Star Wars storylines. And you guys can follow along, but guess what? If you miss the stream, you can look at the videos and get the story for yourself. So this is going to be an experiment, Mike, to see if I can even beat these games or if these games will run on new systems, Windows 10, will these games run? These are going to be some fun things to try, but I hope you guys enjoy at home. We get to see Kyle Katarn's story. He is a smuggler turned Jedi, ends up being trained by Luke Skywalker. So it's right in the niche with our show and more free content for you guys at home. Just watch the Twitch. It's coming.
I asked him to do a Star Wars podcast with me, and I turned him into a Twitch streamer. I hope his wife can forgive me.
I don't think so.
Hey, we've got a holiday special.
Let's go to the holiday special.
All right, so you are listening to this potentially on Christmas Eve. That's when it came out, hopefully, assuming nothing went wrong behind the scenes with us. And we're going to do something similar to what we did with our Thanksgiving episode. In that episode, we said what the main cast might be thankful for. But before we get to that, I'm sorry, Jesse, I skipped ahead. Star Wars and Christmas are kind of tied together these days, aren't they?
Yeah, that's so right, Mike. We have a lot of Christmas Star Wars crossover, and that's more than the holiday special. If you guys heard our last episode with the War Starts at Midnight guys, Chris has an unbelievable connection to the holiday special and Lumpy. I'm not sure I agree with his assessment with Attack of the Clones and the holiday special by any means, but I do understand the unbelievable allure of Lumpy. So starting with just watching the holiday special, what's some other things you could do during Christmas, Mike? Well, I've got a couple ideas, and I think you do too. So some people put Star Wars ornaments on their tree. That would be me and other people I know. The star of our tree is actually a Vader, but that aside, there's a lot of Star Wars Hallmark ornaments all over the place. So much so that now they're even at Walmart. So if you're listening to this episode, you could go to Walmart and you could get some Star Wars ornaments for your tree. I mean, it's taken over, Mike, for sure. So we got the holiday special ornaments. What else we got, Mike, you think?
Oh, man, for me, just with the sequel trilogy, Christmas time has become synonymous with Star Wars because we had Episode 7, Rogue One, and then Episode 8. And honestly, Solo should have been released this month, not in May of this past year. I think it would have done a lot better at the box office. I think that's a misstep that Disney and Lucasfilm have recognized at this point, because it feels weird not having a new Star Wars movie for the first time.
No, you're so right. So this is the 3rd anniversary of The Force Awakens. Then we have the 2-year anniversary of Rogue One, and the 1-year anniversary of The Last Jedi.
Can you believe it's only been 1 year since The Last Jedi with all the stuff that's been said online?
I was going to say that, 50. Plus you and I starting a podcast in June onward, basically. And you know what I mean? Just being so focused on Luke and The Last Jedi and all the good stuff in between. You're so right. It feels longer than 1 year. Honestly, Mike, it feels longer than 2 years with Rogue One. I was thinking about that today. But so, yeah, this is synonymous time. I mentioned this on the show before, I think, Mike, but every year I would have a huge group of friends. We'd all go see Star Wars at the theaters. That's not happening this year, so I'm going to find something else to do. But also, there's more Christmas activities. I think a lot of people during this time of the year give Star Wars gifts, whether that be coffee mugs, pint glasses, Star Wars action figures, Star Wars collectibles, Star Wars Legos. These things are all kind of synonymous with this time of the year. And I have a new tradition that I started only 2 years ago. One of my close friends, Sam, made me a small tree to go in our house. And on the tree, he put all Star Wars Legos. And I asked him where he got the Star Wars Legos. And he actually got them from the Star Wars Advent Calendar. It's something you can buy from Lego. There's a currently 2018 one.
Oh, yeah.
And he bought...
I thought about that for the youngling, but there's still too much of a choking hazard.
So maybe the Star Wars Advent Calendar is something you could do. It's not too late, honestly. I know the Advent Calendar is pretty far underway, but it's still super fun. And what my friend did, which I thought was incredible, he hot glued ornament hooks on the back of the Legos, and then he hung them all on the tree and gave that to me as a gift, which was awesome. So that's the tradition I've stuck with. Since then, I've bought the Advent Calendar the last 2 years. I recently put together Grievous's ship, which got me very excited. That was in the Advent Calendar recently. So that's another fun activity. And of course, it's the holidays. People watch holiday movies. But also, Mike, certain channels on television show Star Wars on loops during these times. I'm mainly thinking of Spike Television and sometimes TNT and things like that. And other families just watch Star Wars.
Is Spike still a channel? My God.
I'm not sure. Fingers crossed as a non-cable person, but I go over to my dad's house and he'll be like watching Star Wars during every holiday. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. There's channels that still show it on loops. So watching Star Wars is also a holiday activity people like to do. So we have Star Wars gifts, Star Wars decorations, Star Wars movies, the holiday special. I mean, you could even do Star Wars cocktails like I told you guys I did in the past at a Star Wars Christmas party. You have a lot of options to celebrate Star Wars during Christmas time, and I it's a great time of the year.
I'm just so bummed we don't have a new movie or TV show this
me too.
Christmas season. Yeah. Well, to make up with it, we're going to go into that bit that I started too early just a minute ago. What kind of gifts would the main cast give? So we're going to talk about characters from the movies, our main cast, and instead of what they are thankful for, which we talked about in our Thanksgiving episode, what kind of gifts would they give to other people? And this time, we're not only going to talk about the main characters from the original trilogy, we're going to include the newbies from the sequel trilogy.
Man, this might get tough.
Yeah. So I think I've got some good ones here. Do you want to go first or second?
I'll go second. I go second. You go ahead and start.
This?
Yeah.
Okay. So first up, I typed out a list of these characters, and hey, we're a Luke Skywalker centric podcast. He was the first name.
He's kind of the main of Star Wars too, right?
So
let's start with Luke.
Yeah. So I picture Luke Skywalker, and I feel like this is pretty consistent from Luke as a farm boy on Tatooine to older Luke that even we saw in The Last Jedi, giving a super lame gift like socks, but thinking it's really cool. He's like, "Aren't you so happy with these nice socks that I got you?"
Wow. That's kind of sad, Mike.
Because this way it keeps the moisture in your feet and the sand off of them.
Wow. I'm gonna go a complete different direction than you.
Because Luke's a dork.
Luke is a dork, but I also think he's very giving as well. I feel like Luke/Mark, and this is based on a lot of reality.
This isn't Mark. This is Luke.
The Last Jedi would say otherwise. But
no, this segment is what gifts would Luke give.
I feel like Luke would give his hand away to anybody, Mike. Like if somebody didn't have the money to afford a robotic hand, he would just take it off and give it to him and say, I'll get another one later. You take this to like a disabled child or an elderly person on the street somewhere that had no money. I feel like he would just take the hand off of his wrist and give it to him. I don't know.
Okay. Well, that's fitting of older Jedi Luke. I think I was sticking more with
that's fair.
Luke.
We've got two very distinct age brackets.
All right, so our next character is Princess Leia. And the type of gift I think that she would give you is I don't think she would give you a gift. She's put that money towards a charity or accomplishing some big goal in your name. You're welcome.
Wow, that's pretty good. Yeah, that might be true. Maybe she would give you a job. Maybe. I don't know.
Ooh,
I think she'd give you a job.
That's
you're like, I'm a Y-wing
good.
technician, and she's like, are you? And you're like, yes, I promise. And she's like, all right, I'll take a chance on you, kid.
We'll find you a Y-wing to work on. That's very good. Similar train of thought, but yeah, she's not just doing something in your name; she's giving you something to improve yourself on.
Number 3.
All right, so our next character is Han. Han is giving you a piece of junk that he found on the Falcon because he forgot that it was Christmas time. He's here. I wrapped this inertial dampener component for you. The Falcon will ride a little rough for the next couple weeks, but I hope you enjoy it.
I like it.
Let's
do more mock voices. Let's start doing more of that. Han, this is tough. I feel like with Han, you're right, Mike. You're either getting something that he completely forgot about, wasn't ready. He's like, here's a rare Wookiee hair, or something like just like this came off of Boba Fett's braid, something. Or he's like fully intentional. He's like, okay, you're on the Falcon with me. Here's my secret stash of Corellian brandy from 10 years ago. I'm going to give you some Corellian brandy. We're going to sit down, maybe play a hollow chess match, hang out, drink the brandy. It's either that or he's just completely forgot. So there's no middle ground. It's something real fancy or that. Or maybe he just gave you a ride on the Falcon. I don't know.
I do think there might be one extreme and he has happened to have won a planet in a
Yes.
game of cards, and Leia already has one, so he gives you a planet too.
That's pretty good.
All right, so our next character is Chewie.
Ooh, this is tough.
I think that Chewie gives you the exact gift that you need that is so sweet and thoughtful that makes you break down and cry. It's so personalized and unique to you because Chewie knows you so well that Chewie is the best gift giver because he is everybody's best dad in Star Wars.
So going off of similar to what you said, Mike, I feel like Chewie would give you either the bowcaster off his back, this rare Wookiee artifact, this rare weapon that only Wookiees have, or he just give you like a gold card that says you're now in the Life Debt Club or something, Yeah, like I got your back. You're in my family now. I will protect you forever. I'll watch over your kids. This applies to your whole family. I don't know. Chewie's great. He's way too good.
He doesn't get enough respect. We've heard enough about Episode 9 that I doubt it happens, but still, if I can get hashtag General Chewbacca, that train going, it's his turn. Let him.
We'll start
lead
that
the
up again at
rebellion.
some point.
All right, next up we have Lando. And if you're a lady, you get a gift from Lando. And if you're at a white elephant Christmas party, it's like Michael Scott taking an iPod to a $5 limit gift white elephant party. Lando's out to embarrass everyone else, but impress you with his vast wealth and resources. If you're some other dude, you don't get anything. But I feel like that's pretty vintage Lando.
Oh yeah, vintage. Vintage is a good word too to describe Lando. I feel like he would get you something vintage, or he would get you an experience, Mike. I feel like he'd buy like a dinner and like a resort stay, or like a dinner and like a special like casino stay, something where he's just like, well, like I only got 2 tickets, but you got to come with me, like something where it's like you have to go with him.
Very
but
good.
You're getting this full experience, buffets, casinos, all the things. But you don't get his cape. You never get his cape. That stays with him.
Both of those are only just a little bit creepy with the implication and whatnot.
I mean, it's Lando. I mean, he's not necessarily creepy, but we know him.
Yeah. So next on the list, I just put the droids, and this could be R2, 3PO, and I guess we can go ahead and put BB-8 on here as we start to bridge into the sequel trilogy. I don't know that they would each get you a gift on their own, but I can picture them working together. C-3PO showing up like, Princess Leia, do you notice I don't have the red arm anymore? Now I'm all one color. Don't you appreciate this gift from me?
I'm uniform now. Yeah, I could see that.
Maybe that happened between 7
That's
and
true.
8.
That's true. I could see R2 being like giving you a piece of paper that says 1 use of astromech duties or something on any given day, even though that's how he's supposed to be all the time, but he's R2. He's not going to always do it. Like, I will work on your ship for 5 hours on this one day or something. You cash it in with him. But other than that, with R2, I don't know. I don't think he cares. I just don't think...
At this point, he's seen
unless
it,
you're Luke or
doesn't
3PO,
care.
I just do not think R2 cares about you at all. I just don't think he cares. Like, he cares about Luke, he cares about 3PO. He doesn't even want to admit that he cares about 3PO, but he cares about 3PO. That's it.
Well, I bet that's a good lead into our next one, because next on our list is Finn. And Finn, raised in a, stormtrooper brainwashing collective or whatever, as FN 2187. Finn has a gift specifically for Rey, or in my personal headcanon, maybe specifically for Poe, but you end up with it at the White Elephant Party. So it's something
He intended it for
it's
them.
like a handmade little ornament specifically for Rey that's like Finn and Rey or Finn and
But
Poe
somebody else
forever, but you
You're like,
ended
what is
up
this? This cardboard paper? What is this? Construction. Child made this with safety scissors? What's happened here? Poor Finn. Yeah, it's either that or like a decommissioned blaster that'll never work again. You know, he's like, it looks cool. I stole it from somebody. Poor guy. Yeah, I don't know. That's good. Yeah. Maybe Mike, he still has one of those coins left from Canto-Bight. Maybe one of the coins BB-8 shot out.
Oh,
he's like,
he could.
Don't
Yeah.
spend this all in one place. You know, so.
I got you this fathier. You can go to Canto-Bight and bet.
You're not a muggle anymore.
So next on our list is Rey, and I'm glad Jesse chose to let me go first because I'm taking the easy one here. And you're going to open your gift from Rey, and you're going to find 1/4 portion.
It's either 1/4 portion or something cool Rey found in the junkyard. So maybe she found a really unique helmet or flight suit or something. And she's like, hey, this is the nicest thing I've ever found. Here you go. Right? And you're like, this is an old, dirty pre-war flight suit. She's like, yeah, that's the nicest thing I've ever found.
Which, to the right crowd, she found
Boss
some cool
wears that
stuff.
every day. So Boss is like, yes, give me a 7th yellow jumpsuit to wear to add to my wardrobe. So, yeah, it's either that with Rey or with Rey. I just think, you know, she's just going to be a friend. I don't know if gifts are so much her thing. It's more her loyalty and, you know, her friendship maybe, which is, you know, a whole nother thing.
So next on our list is Poe. And the gift that Poe gives you is he tells you he's going to come to your party. And you're like, oh, man, everybody, Poe, the coolest guy in the galaxy, is going to come to my Christmas party. You have to be there. And he never shows up. You keep telling people he's going to be here in 10 minutes. Poe, the coolest guy, is going to be here in 10 minutes. And the gift he gives you is, you know, his word that he'll be there so that other people come to your party.
I'm going to piggyback off of your answer, Mike, and it's be a little bit meta, but I kind of agree exactly with what you're talking about. I think it's that plus Poe's dancing skills. So I don't know if you guys have seen Oscar Isaac dancing on the set of The Force Awakens or Oscar Isaac dancing in one of my favorite films of that year, Ex Machina. His dance moves in Ex Machina or his dance moves on the set of Force Awakens, he's going to show up your party and he's going to do a dance for you. And the dance floor is going to erupt. Like no one's going to be on it. It's going to be that awkward wedding that everybody's been to, which is about 90% of weddings, where there's one person dancing and then Poe shows up, he dances and everybody's out there. And it's a party the rest of the night. And you're, as the host, you're like, this is the best gift I ever could have got. I would pay high money as somebody who hosts a lot of events. I would pay high money for Oscar Isaac to dance in my house and just erupt, make the party erupt.
All right.
Oh no.
So our last one is Kylo Ren or Ben Solo. So I imagine him giving you a book of his dark,
you took that from me.
personally
the dark
written
journals of Palpatine
poetry, but he's giving it to you in his Matt the Radar Technician voice. Oh, hey, I heard that Kylo Ren's lightsaber's over there. Here, look, I got you this book of dark brooding poetry.
Dang it, you took my answer.
Hey, man, I gave you the choice. You let me go first.
Kylo would either give you a poorly made lightsaber that barely doesn't work, might not even turn on, or maybe his collection of records, maybe a couple, you know, My Chemical Romance, Cure records, something. I mean, just
oh, he does have all of those horrible.
Hey, I'm not saying these are horrible records. I like a lot of these bands. I know you are.
I am saying that so much of what he's
but I feel like some of these
horrible.
bands that he likes, like he is like the stereotypical fan of those bands. You know what I mean? Like he's not just like someone like, oh, it's a good record, it's a good song. He's like, I love this band so much. This is my favorite thing. It means so much to me.
I feel like you had the option of that or going super dark and like Billy Bob Thornton.
Oh,
like,
man.
Here's a vial of my blood that you can wear.
Yeah. That's what he's gonna. That's what the Reylo fans are not ready for. Here, Rey, I gave you a vial of my blood.
Oh shit, they're gonna be after us now.
I gave you a vial of my blood. Yeah, we will. Means a lot to me. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But I feel like Kylo's gonna give something very meaningful to him, but to you, you're just like, wow, what is this? And you're like, did you buy this at Hot Topic? He's like, I made it. Yeah, oh, okay. Great. So I broke Mike. So we have to end with Kylo. That was a good one to end on.
Oh man, when you brought Hot Topic in, that was great. Yep. We hope you enjoyed our speculation of what the Star Wars main cast might give as gifts here at this holiday season. I had a good time with that. I can't wait for our next holiday where we can make up stuff that they're going to do for each other. It's time for us to start wrapping this thing up, though.
So you guys know at the end of every show, we like to read the reviews you guys leave us on iTunes and Apple Podcasts. And guess what, Mike? We still have reviews to read, so this is so exciting. Keep leaving us reviews, guys, if you want your review read on the show. And just if you want to help us out, it's a good way to get our podcast visibility in the Star Wars world and podcast world. So let's go ahead and read a review from Carrie991 titled Star Wars Stuff. These guys know what they're talking about. Give the show a listen. It's simple. It's encouraging. I like it.
Well, I regret letting Jesse read the short one today because I like the name on this next one, but I actually haven't read it, and it's a lot longer, so we'll see if I can get through it in one go. It's from This Tauntaun Smells Awful. Great name. And they say, it's unusual to find a Star Wars podcast where you can anticipate when the next one will drop, but that's exactly what this one has turned into. I hope that means you're able to just predict where we're going with the story.
Yeah.
We're talking both canon or legends. That's great. They focus on Luke, and the deep dives into the established lore really hits the spot. The podcast is open to ending each episode with something off the trail, which I really like. We really like
Kylo
that you
Ren's
like
journals.
that too, especially if you just heard our last part. I can see myself playing any games they recommend based on the seriousness with which they analyze the details. Yeah, we're super serious over here. I really recommend the show if you are on a long drive or need to pass the time. If you've got hours that need to go away, we're apparently,
I like
really good, help with that. So thank you so much.
Yes,
Tauntaun
seriously.
Smells awful.
And I really appreciate mentioning our extra segments and our gaming stuff because Mike and I do put time into this stuff on top of the actual important story, reading, research stuff. We do put time into these segments because they're pretty fun, Mike. And I like talking gaming as well. So that's cool. You mentioned gaming.
You didn't mention Super Smash Brothers, which is all the gaming
man.
I do these
That's
days,
okay.
but that's okay.
So once again, guys, leave us reviews and we'll read them on the show. We really enjoy reading these. Some of these are really funny. Some are really encouraging. And Mike, we're at a bunch of 5-star reviews so far. So I'm encouraged. I'm happy. And you guys know, every time we get a new review that's 5 stars, even if you don't write a review, if you just give us 5 stars, that helps us out a lot. I mention that every time, but I'll continue to mention it. Thank you.
I know that Jesse is happy with all of these 5-star reviews.
Oh, no.
And I am too. But if you've got the guts to give us the 1-star review and make it really funny, I am looking forward to that.
What about
day.
3 stars or 2 stars?
If you've got a funny oh, come on. We can handle a 1-star if it's funny. If you've got it in you, bring it on. The Canon Cantina is available on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, Podbean, Podcast Addict, YouTube. We're on Spotify, pretty much anywhere that you can find podcasts. If we're not on your favorite podcast platform, let us know, and we will find it and get it posted for you. You can also find Jesse's gaming stuff at twitch.tv/thecanoncantina.
Help spread the word of our show by subscribing, rating, and reviewing. If you think we can do something better, just email us at canoncantina@gmail.com. Join us next week, guys, as we talk about Dark Apprentice, the second Jedi Academy book in the Jedi Academy trilogy. Now that Luke has found his temple, what's going to happen? How's he going to start training people? What's going to happen next? Join us for that. And if you guys follow our Audible link, listen to that Audible book and tell us your thoughts and listen to our thoughts. We got a lot to talk about. This is a really fun trilogy to cover.
Yeah, I had a great time here in the Canon Cantina today. I hope you all did too. Thanks for joining us. Cheers, everybody.
May the Force be with you.
Boring conversation anyway.